welcome. Thank you for coming. Carmen wants web orders to automatically appear in FileMaker. Derek can't add payments to invoices. Hugo complains the system is running really slowly for customer services. Derek wants to send special offer marketing emails to clients. Claire says there are too many duplicate customers in the system. Mandy wants some new sales reports. Derek wants a complete system rebuild. Janet needs a database to keep track of everyone's tea and coffee preferences. Lena says the colour scheme makes her physically sick. And Derek says he's going to leave if we don't fix the back button. Hands up if anyone is familiar with this kind of nonsense. Right, quite a few of you. Because it doesn't matter if you're a third-party developer or if you are an in-house developer and you're dealing with bosses rather than clients. I think a lot of us can relate to this sort of scenario and feel a little bit of pain remembering clients from the past. It's essentially people just throwing lots of different issues with you from all different angles. And one or two of you are probably sitting there thinking, I know what the problem is here. It's very obvious what the problem is. The problem is Derek. Yeah, that's what you were thinking, of course. Because he's throwing out lots of stuff. He's making a lot of noise. The thing is, he isn't the problem. You need your Dereks, right? Because he's engaged, right? He's got ideas. He wants to change things. He's motivated to change. You need to keep them within the business. You don't want to discourage that. The real problem is this. It's just too much noise. So all of these requests are sitting in your inbox and they're all demanding attention. So as developers or project managers, how do we know which of these tasks we're supposed to prioritize? And so very often, if there's no clear strategy in place, then the priority is given to the person who shouts the loudest. You familiar with that? Which obviously in this case is Derek. And he is delighted with this situation. Look at his face. He's really happy. He's getting his needs met. So what is the problem? And I'll be honest, at We Know Data, we used to sort of be quite happy with that situation too. Because if you look at it, right, you've got a massive list of tasks to get through. This is fantastic because we've got robust processes in place to deliver them. We write the requirements, the client signs them off, we hand them to developers and schedule them in, the tasks get done, we invoice the client pays. You know, the client's happy because we're getting things done, we're happy because we're getting paid, and the developers, they love it. Because as developers, it's quite a fun way to develop, isn't it? It's a little bit like whack-a-mole. Right, a bug comes up, you smash it down, wait for the next one, you take on that, you're just sort of picking and choosing the things you want to deal with. And I used to really enjoy that, but what we realized at We Know Data was that even though we're ticking things off our clients' to-do list, we're not necessarily working in the best interests of our clients. So our approach was great for us, it was fine for one or two of our clients' employees, but it wasn't good for their company as a whole. And I think it was quite rare that we had clients, and I don't know if you're similar, but just to have a client who looks at the bigger picture rather than sort of the more immediate achievable goals. So I'm going to talk to you about the way that we have resolved this with our clients. And I'm going to talk to you about the system roadmap plan. Before I do that, I should explain who the heck am I. I am Mark Allen. I'm the head of technical partnerships at We Know Data. We are honoured to be one of Claris's esteemed platinum partners, and I'm based in the UK. Professionally, I was first introduced to FileMaker in 1999, so version 4.1. Does anyone remember that? Yes, that was great. One file, one table, that's all you've got, good luck. Giddy times, things have changed. I am accredited in FileMaker from version 11 all the way to the current micro certifications. I joined We Know Data a decade ago. Don't know if that qualifies me for a carriage clock, but anyway, I've been there for a while. I started as a senior developer and I've since evolved into a more client-facing role. So my job really is talking to clients and both new clients and existing ones, understanding what they need, kind of helping them shape projects, and then basically handing it over to the delivery team and the development team to make the magic happen. So personally, who am I? I am a permanently frazzled dad of 3 kids. All of my kids are neurodivergent. They're all autistic, all have ADHD, so it's a fun time in our household. They are amazing, but it is never dull. But I do think, weirdly, that having neurodifferent kids benefits me in my job because I'm having to juggle the competing needs of 3 different children. Going to a client and juggling their competing needs is a piece of cake. So I also host a podcast about parenting neurodivergent children. That's what the picture is there. The podcast is called Neuroshambles, and it is available on all good podcast platforms. Anyway, enough of that nonsense. Let's crack on with the topic in hand. What is a system roadmap plan? Essentially, it is an agreed, prioritized timeline of deliverable items intended to move a client towards their business objectives. So, by show of hands, how many people in this room do deliver regular roadmap planning sessions for their clients? 1 person, 2 people. Okay, so you're going to have, I like that one, it's like, yeah, it kind of. So obviously, you know, the people that do have that, because there are different ways of doing it. Obviously, you've got your own methodology, so, you know, you might be interested in understanding how we do it at We Know Data. If you don't do this, great, you're in the right place. Strap in, it's going to be interesting. So look at the key characteristics of a system roadmap plan. Well, firstly, it's a list of projects to tackle business issues. What we're not doing is listing a bunch of bugs to tackle. That's too granular. We want to keep it as high level as possible. So try to keep it non-technical, which is not easy to do. If you're a FarmaCare developer, we're problem solvers, right? So if someone talks to us about a problem, we go, oh, think of all the solutions. Try not to get involved at this point. I know we could do, but don't get drawn in. It's a trap. It's a time drain. So just understand that we're not trying to provide solutions in this roadmap planning session. We're just trying to catalogue and understand the problems. Essentially, it helps to think as pain points. We're trying to understand the client's pain points. The other thing that we need to do is account for timelines and milestones. So obviously, if they've got any deadlines coming up, they've got a website that's going to be launched in October. That may have an impact on other areas of the business, so it's really important for us to know about that. The other thing we need to do is align with the company's vision. So a key part of the roadmap plan is actually understanding what they're trying to achieve. Where do they want to get to? Because if we're going to kind of be helpful to them, then we need to make sure that anything that we do on the roadmap aligns with the direction of travel of the business. Another thing to do is involve key stakeholders. So obviously, we've only heard from Derek until now. We need to get everyone's opinion on this and give them a sense of ownership about things. The most crucial thing about a roadmap plan really is that it's prioritized. So everything that I talk about really is to get us to the point where we can help the client prioritize their roadmap themselves, to give them all of that information to allow them to do that. And then the final thing is that it needs to be clearly laid out, because there's no point in writing like a really long 54-page report and presenting that, because they're not going to share that internally. And that's ultimately what we want. We want everyone to be on the same page and present it really clearly, really visually, and make it easy to follow. Okay, so what is the process? Firstly, prepare. There's a lot of P's here, right? Prepare, purge, prioritize, pragmatize, and present. I'm aware that I'm one of only a few UK people, so just where it says pragmatize and prioritize, just imagine a Z, or a Z, if you will. It's up to you. So let's look at the first bit, right? Prepare. So this is about getting as much background information as we can about the client, and one of the important things to do is find out the client's super objective. I don't know if you're familiar with the super objective or if it's something that Rob, our CEO, made up, but essentially, there's a theory that a client company is only really interested in one of 3 things. They either want to scale, grow the business, sell more stuff. They want to step back, so they might be they might be eyeing retirement and want to step back and leave it in someone else's hands to take it forward, or they might want to sell it. And if I think about it, I think pretty much all of our clients fit one of these 3 super objectives, and that has an impact on how you choose to prioritize stuff on your roadmap. So it's useful to find that out early on. The other thing we need to think about is the current climate in their industry. because we know our clients, right? We know their business because we've been in there and we've understood their processes. What we don't know is the wider industry, and that's where they can really be helpful to us. So are there new health and safety regulations coming in that's going to impact the process on the production line, for example? Or is there new technology being introduced by competitors that's going to be disruptive? How's AI going to impact their business? You know, all of that side of things is really useful for us to know because, again, informs a prioritization. The other thing to do is ask what is on the horizon for them as a business. Because very often clients don't tell you. Have you ever had it where sometimes someone will go, oh yeah, we're opening a new warehouse next week? What? Should I not have known that? Because that's going to potentially impact the stock table. You know, you're going to have to put locations on things. And so having these conversations just means that you can understand a little bit more about what they're planning as a business. Are they introducing new products, for example, that are going to need to be stored in a different way or delivered in a different way, that sort of thing. The other thing to do is review their current backlog, because obviously we work with our clients, we support their systems, and we have a ticketing system that allows them to, you know, raise requests and enhancement requests and that sort of thing. So familiarize yourself with that at the start before you go in. What you don't want to do is to be blindsided by them saying, oh, I've got that button doesn't work now. It's like, you know, you're going to get bogged down. So be aware of what's in their inbox so that you can then bring some of the bigger ones back to them and say, well, this should be on the roadmap because this seems to be a big problem. The other thing to do is try and group tasks together. So they might have, like, say, they want a new navigation bar and a new button somewhere, and they want to change the color and put a logo, and you just group all of that under a UI redesign and then tackle that as your project rather than having them individually. And then the final thing to do is invite everyone's opinion. I know that I said that before, but it is super important. It is to get everyone to have a say, because how many times have you heard people going, oh, FileMaker's rubbish? It's like, it's not FileMaker that's rubbish. It's your database doesn't do what you want it to do. So if they can feed back and they have a way of being able to kind of let people know what they need, then it's really helpful in terms of their engagement with the system and in terms of how it helps them do their job. Okay, step 2, purge. This is significantly less sinister than that sounds. Doesn't involve any violence unless the roadmap planning session has gone drastically wrong. Basically, it's get it all out on the table. Get them to get it off their chest, right? Any secret spreadsheets, all clients have got secret spreadsheets. Right? I'm sure most of us have got secret spreadsheets. And I think there's an element of shame to them. When you talk to clients, they don't want to confess that they've got this spreadsheet, but they are really important to the business, because what they're doing is they're highlighting something that their system isn't doing. And so they'll go to the easiest thing that there is for them to do, which is stick it on a spreadsheet and keep it that way. So if they can tell us about that, we understand what processes they're not able to do with their system, and then we can put it on the roadmap as a way to resolve that issue. We need to know about any third-party applications they use. A lot of clients, especially with legacy systems, they've got really old systems, don't know about REST API integration. They don't know that FileMaker can talk to a different system. So if you then find out, oh, they're using MailChimp, it's like, well, I've got some good news for you. It integrates beautifully, and then you can sort of help them to see other opportunities to grow the system. We need to know any new processes. Obviously, if there's anything that's not tracked in the system and that they want to bring into it, then let us know. Pain points is the big one. Let them have a moan. Because it becomes also, if you get the tone right, it can be really good. So a client once told me at the end of it, went, that felt like therapy for me. Because they managed to just sort of get all these things that are frustrating them off their chest. And it might not be that we get them delivered for them, but at least we've got them on a list somewhere. They know someone's heard. Okay, then step 4, prioritize, which is the crucial bit. You need to help them understand the impact of each of their pain points in the business, which is one of the main end goals of the roadmap planning session. So we already know, for example, the company's super objective. We know their business goals. We know their timelines and milestones, because we've got all of that before we even got to the roadmap planning session. Now we want to assess the impact of each of those pain points on their business. And this is the fun bit because we use this, which is essentially a continuum of impact, which makes it sound like a Bond movie. But it's a way for clients to communicate how much of an impact each of their pain points has on the business. And it's fascinating watching them communicate this because really, as a developer or a project manager or whatever I do, I don't get involved because it's for them to discuss it because they get to communicate stuff that other departments won't know about. So let's say that pain point number one is a major problem. So they're going to stick it right at the huge impact end of things. And then you basically give every single one of them a category. Once you've done that and you've allocated all their pain points, you're ready to move on to the next step, which is to pragmatize that. And that is to give them a dose of reality. Because very often, I'm sure every single person in the room has had someone going, oh, I've got a quick thing for you to do. Won't take long. And then you look at it, it's like, that's going to require a fundamental restructure of the whole database. It's not a quick thing. Or conversely, they might say, this is a really big project. It's like, well, there's an add-on for that. We can do that in no time. Or there's a plugin that we can use for that. So it's really giving them an understanding of how much effort is involved in solving each of these different pain points. And once you've done that, that is where the magic happens because we add it to this here. And this really is to give them an understanding of how much effort is involved in each of these tasks. So all of the things that we did on the continuum of impact in the previous one, we keep along the x-axis exactly where it was because the impact is still going to be the same. But then we allocate it somewhere on the y-axis there. So what you get is this kind of thing. And then you really get to build up their sense of how impactful each of the projects is and how much effort is involved in each one. And it gives them a realistic view of what's achievable. And they can look at that and go, well, I quite like the idea of pain point 2, but it's going to be way too much effort to do and it's going to be too low impact. So you can start to remove things from their roadmap just by looking at the fact that they're just not going to be worth the time that is going to be invested in it. So we're already pruning down the list of things to do. Once we've done the roadmap plan, we need to present it. So we need to revise the priorities, we add it to a visual timeline, and then we share it with the client. So in terms of revising the priorities, we would look at that and go, well, they might want to just do a bunch of quick wins here. So they might want to do tasks 10 and 7, for example, just to get them out the door, and then focus on maybe the one at the top there is task 5, I think, can't see from here. But you need to let them prioritize it. Now they have all the information. They know how much effort's involved. They know, what their super objective is, all of that. They can then do the prioritization side of things. And that's their call, not ours. We have to sit there silently. Once you've done that, add it to a visual timeline. So something like this. This is not pretty, I realize that. This is very straightforward, but the simpler the better, because you need them to share it with other people. As I said, there's no point in writing a really massive report because people aren't going to read it. And the more people that are on board with a roadmap plan, the more people know where their project is in the pipeline, then the better it is for keeping things moving. Especially useful for non-technical people. Okay, once we've done that, we present it with the client. So we will basically send a PDF. This is a sample of a PDF that we'll send. It's 5 pages. It basically includes the images of the things that we've put together in the roadmap plan, a brief summary of each item, and next steps. And typically, I will get this out on the same day that I do the roadmap plan. So the roadmap plan that I do, I can get down to about 2 hours, usually a bit quicker. And then my goal is to get it to them by the end of the day. So it'll take me a half an hour to do that, and then it's gone. And it's all about keeping momentum, really. So that is it in theory. Let's look at a practical example. So imagine a business, any old business. It's probably going to be a typical small, medium enterprise business that might use FileMaker. This is Gnomes Direct. Right, don't Google it. They don't exist. I made it up for this, right? But it's a typical kind of thing. They're a leading online garden gnome reseller. They got 22 employees. They've got a website for customer sales. They've got a FileMaker database to manage orders, customer relationship management and dispatch, and their accounts are done in Xero. So we're all probably familiar with similar sort of businesses. Let's have a look at the organisation chart because this is, again, pretty symptomatic. You've got HR, customer services, marketing, sales, finance, IT, and dispatch. And as with many similar companies, FileMaker's going to impact some of it, but not all of the business. So really, you're only looking at these key people. So that's customer services, sales, finance, and dispatch. And, of course, the CEO, which, if you look at the CEO there, is Derek. And now you can start to see why he's making all the suggestions, why he shouts the loudest. Now, full disclosure, Derek is based on a real client that I used to work with. And as you can see, he's really stuck with me. So hands up if you've ever worked with a Derek. These are people who just they resource guard the task list and they're the only people that get to see it and add to it. And they're quite hard to work with. And he was a lovely guy and he was really engaged and he had lots of ideas, but he was only pushing through the changes he wanted. So he'd get me in, and then he'd sit me down and then basically point to the screen and go, I want that there, I want that there. And he was obsessed about the alignment of his invoices. So he'd spend a whole day with me changing the font and the spacing and making sure that the alignment was right. And then he'd go on to the other type of invoice, and he's delighted with that situation. Meanwhile, the rest of his company is on fire. It was ridiculous. It was like the customer services couldn't see invoices. The office staff were having to manually print out and retype web orders into the system. And there was no effective way. There was no lists showing which invoices were overdue. So things are not going well. And I don't think that he was ignoring the issues. I just don't think he was aware of them. I don't think people felt comfortable talking to him about the issues, or there just wasn't that forum for them to get their ideas heard. So they just got on with it and they created their workarounds, usually Excel. And this is the perfect use case for a business roadmap plan. So I'll remind you of the process again and we'll go through it. So step one is to prepare. So the client's super objective here for Gnomes Direct is that they want to scale, right? Derek wants to grow the business. He's not made enough money. He wants to go global with it. He lives for Gnomes Direct. What is going on in the industry that we don't know about? Well, a new competitor has emerged on the scene. Imagine this. There's a rival in the gnome sales industry. It's a mega store that only deals with selling gnomes, and they're called Gnome Depot. That's the one joke in the show. Enjoy it. So they need to stay ahead of the competition, right? That's an important piece of information for us to know. What's on the horizon for them as a business? Well, Derek has decided he's going to set themselves a goal to deal with this competition. He set them a goal of delivering people's orders to their door within 48 hours. That's a punchy order, but Derek is insistent that that is going to help them grow as a business. So they need to improve the throughput of orders. That now becomes a priority. So everything needs to align with that. That's because it's going to impact the prioritization of things. The other thing they need to do is review their current backlog. So we've done that, and we've added some of those to the list as well. And then we invite everyone's opinion. So in this instance, what we need to do here is, obviously Derek's there. You're not keeping him out of the room, are you? Then you'd bring in your customer services manager, your sales manager, your finance manager, and your dispatch manager. You wouldn't invite everyone in because you just wouldn't get anything done. But what you do is you give the managers the freedom to speak to all of the people under them and get their ideas so that it's then fed into that meeting and you've got everyone's been considered. Once we have all this in place, we're ready for step two, which is the purge. So what have we got here? The secret spreadsheets. Well, we know that Wendy has an Excel spreadsheet of tea and coffee preferences that she wants in a database. Mandy in sales is currently creating sales reports from scratch each month. From scratch. It's madness. But she's doing it. The third-party applications, they use Xero, but they're not really that keen to integrate with it because they're thinking, for whatever reason, of moving over to QuickBooks. The new processes that they've got, they don't have any. It's a family business, it's working well, so we don't need to factor any of those in. It's just a case of improving the existing processes. And the pain points, as we know, there are lots of these. So we have a look at the backlog tasks, and we put together something like this. So this is the list that we looked at the start, right? So we've got this list of tasks, and we need to now condense it down so that we can add it to the roadmap plan. So what you want to do really is take that, something like that, make it a bit kind of shorter, a bit pithier, and give it a number. So this isn't a prioritization number at this point. It's just so that we've got a number allocated to each one. Try to remove the personalization from each one unless it specifically relates to something that is to do with one person. So for example, Derek can't add payments to invoices. You're going to have to mention him. So it would go to that one. Some of the issues like this one here, so for example, if the system is running really slowly, that could be anything. As you know, as developers, it could be too many summary fields on a layout. They might be hammering the server with something else going on. There's too many things to unpack. So what we can't do there is just tell them, we can't give them an idea of effort until we know what actually might be affecting it. So what we do in this case is that we'd have something like a system performance analysis task where we've got a tried and tested method of trying lots of different things and working out what it could be, finding the smoking gun and then working on that. That would then be the task that we work on. But for now, just the fact that we're addressing it as something to look at is enough. Okay. Once we've done that, we've got a lovely list of things to include on the roadmap plan. Again, not in priority order yet. This is where the prioritization comes in, where they start adding it to the continuum of impact. So, importing web orders into FileMaker is going to have a huge impact because there's a duplication of effort, it's time consuming, it's introducing potential user error, and it's really, really annoying. So that is definitely high impact. Then we've got things like enabling Derek to add payments to invoices, not a massive impact. The performance analysis would probably be quite beneficial because things are pretty slow. Special offer marketing emails would probably be quite high impact. So you start filling out all of this. As you can see, the tea and coffee database, tea and coffee preference database is very low impact. So it's unlikely that Wendy's going to get her needs met. And we've got all that, and
you want questions now or at the end?
We can try and take them at the end, because if I run out of time, I can go out there and talk to you then. Is that all right? Yep. So once we've done that, and we've got that, we need to add it to the matrix. And it's important that we basically keep them in exactly the same position on the x-axis. So we literally just copy that and put it on there. So once we've got that, right, we haven't yet allocated the effort on this, and this is where we start to give them an indication of how much is involved in each one. So if we have a look at the first one, right, import web orders into FileMaker, how much effort does it take to do that as a project? Where do we think that would go on the list? Feel free to shout out. Medium. All right, let's have a look. Boom, straight out. I think it's medium. It's achievable, but there is faff involved. Now, at this point, just to clarify, we're really looking at delivering an MVP, minimum viable product approach to this. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but basically, we know there are lots of different ways of doing the same thing in FileMaker. If you want to send emails from a server, you could use Mailgun, you could use MailChimp, you could do it from an SMTP server, you could do plain text, you could do HTML. So at this point, we're just trying to solve their pain point in the most effective way possible. Because that's all we can do at this point, is just to give them a rough idea. It's a finger in the air. Well, I think it's about there. So if you look at enabling Derek to add invoices to payment, that's number 2. As you can see, that is all the way down there. It's probably just a permissions issue. System performance analysis, is relatively straightforward. So you then start to add a little bit of context to each of these items. Okay, so that one there's a system rebuild, probably the most high effort thing that you can do. Yeah, you definitely put that up there. Okay, and then finally that one stays there, right? Fixing the back button, again, probably quite straightforward. So now they've got all that information, they can work out which things they want to deprioritize, they want to put on hold. So these ones here, it makes sense really Number 7, number 8, and number 9, these are either all too high effort or too low impact to really focus on. So we can put them on hold. That's not saying that we're going to get rid of them forever. It just means that they're not in our priorities at the moment. So we put them on hold and we can revisit them later because they might become more pressing at some point. But for now, it helps us to kind of clean up the list a little bit. Okay. Then we need to present them. This is what we need to do in terms of revising the priorities. Because again, as we said earlier, they're going to have different reasons for prioritizing something. So in this instance, if you're going to look at like number 10 and number 2, they're very low effort. And for Gnomes Direct, they just want to get things done. Let's get some of these things done. So they want to go for the low-hanging fruit. They're going to prioritize those ones. Once they're done, they can focus on growing the business and increasing their throughput. So they would then look at marketing emails to bring in more revenue, and then they can focus on importing web orders. So that is what this fictitious client has decided to do. So we then present this kind of roadmap plan to them, which again, super clear to them. They know where they are in the roadmap plan, and then we share it with the client. We put together the PDF, and then we send it out. And that's it. And everyone is on the same page. And all clients will get this if they have a roadmap plan. I wanted to have a quick discussion about the tools we use because I think it's quite useful to sort of reveal behind the curtain. So we use Miro. Is anyone familiar with Miro at all? Hands up if you use Miro. Okay. It's a great tool. It's essentially an interactive whiteboard that it lets you write notes and add relevant documents and create process flows, and you can manipulate images, and it's just really flexible, and we use it quite a lot. There's also a feature that you can click on someone's face and then everyone just follows you around. So if you're presenting something, it's really helpful. So I would just show you a very quick whistle-stop tour of how we would use Miro so in the roadmap plan. This is what we set up before we even get to the roadmap session. And then we'll zoom in. Obviously, we've got an agenda there, so they know the shape of the session. Then we would look at what is on the horizon. So that's the super objective and the plans for growth and any products and services they've got and any other background information we need. We will have already pre-populated the Miro board with the backlog of tasks from their inbox so that we've all got that information to hand so they're not having to repeat themselves. And then we go over to the additional tasks, and these are the things that the pain points that they're sort of divulging in the session. These are the ones that they're telling us that we probably didn't know about. So we put as much information as we can in there on the session. I tend to share the screen as well, so I'm typing in front of them. It helps them to correct me if I'm wrong, and they can see it actually taking shape. Then what we do is we create a list of items, and then in Miro, it's really easy to just kind of move it over and ask them to decide where they go on the continuum of impact. Once that's done, again, super easy to select everything and then just drag it down, making sure that you're keeping it on the same x-axis so that the impact is retained. And then this is where we add what we need to add in terms of how much effort is involved in each one. This is probably the bit that I should have edited down, but it gives me a chance to have a drink. So, okay, come on, move it along. There we go. Right. So then what we do is we show which ones we're going to deprioritize, put on hold, simply a case of sticking it in grey. And I would do this all in front of the client, basically, because it becomes much more collaborative when you do it that way. Then you grab all that and you put it down to the prioritization bit, and this is the bit where you have to stand back a bit and let them argue amongst themselves a little bit and work out. It's really interesting. Sometimes you really see the dynamic between clients when they're sort of, you start to see, weirdly, marketing has loads of power. It's curious how that happens sometimes. So yeah, this is where they're discussing what the priorities are, because it's very often not what you think it is as well, which is quite useful. And then once you've done that, you just drag it all the way down to here on the proposed roadmap. I don't actually fill out the roadmap timeline in front of them because I already know what the priorities are. They don't need to see me do that. And then you just grab the rest of it. You grab the on-hold items, drag them down there. And crucially, you also look at what the next steps are as well. So let them know, I'm going to send this to you by the end of the day, and then we'll have a meeting, try and schedule a meeting for next week to follow up and get things moving if we can. So that's it. The other tool that we use is ClickUp. Is any ClickUp users in the room? ClickUp's great. So that's our project management tool, and we've tried a few different project management tools over the years. We've tried Teamwork and Asana, and ClickUp just seems to be great. It's got loads of features and they're adding more all the time. But one of the things that ClickUp has is an interactive whiteboard feature, which we've tried. It's not as good as Miro yet. I hope at some point it evolves that we can just do everything in the one environment. But we're stuck on Miro at the moment because it's too good. So I'll just quickly show you ClickUp and what we do. So the thing about this is that everyone in our business interacts with this. So the account managers and the developers, the clients do it as well, the project leads, the delivery leads. So everyone has visibility of the client's roadmap. So everyone knows what other projects are on the horizon, which is really handy. So adding a roadmap plan to this is very straightforward. Basically, we just copy it from the PDF and paste it in, and there it is. Again, it's fully transparent to the client and to us. And what's really useful is that you can create tasks directly from this. So once we've got our tasks and we decided which ones are on hold, we just then create a task list, add the detail in there, and then you can see very simply a list of you can reprioritize them, drag and drop. And that's a really useful way of everyone being aligned with the vision of the company's roadmap. So what now? Once we've presented the roadmap plan to them, and we've added it to the internal ClickUp board, so what we do is we need to follow up on the first project as soon as possible. So as I was saying, try and schedule in a call for the next week. Because I've found that when you do a roadmap plan and when they look at the impact that some of these things can have on the business, they're really kind of keen to get started. So you want to keep that momentum. So the sooner you can kind of book a call and go, well, let's start with the first project. We all know that's the priority. Let's go. And at least kickstart the process of learning more about it, scoping it out, giving them a quote, and then they can keep it moving. The other thing to do is to plan for the project after that. When you've got a project in progress, don't just sit back and go, great, I'm done. Look at the next project, because it's really useful to get that heads up for the next team that are involved. Let's say the next project is a marketing project, and then you want to integrate with MailChimp. They can start writing the emails now. They can start signing up to MailChimp now and testing it out. So it's really handy so that when you're ready to start the next process, again, it's about momentum. And the other thing about the momentum as well is if you've got everything queued up, sometimes they love working with developers. All of our developers are fabulous, but sometimes developers have a particular bond with a client. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that. So you can then say, look, we know your next project, and that developer that you love, there are other delivery leads that want him on their project. I want to get him on your project, so let's get that signed off now, and then we can keep the momentum going. So it's useful for the client. If they're going to spend that money, then you might as well do it now. It's useful for the developer because they don't have to be onboarded for a new project, and it's useful for us because we keep things going. Okay, the other thing is to schedule regular roadmap reviews. So we do that sort of depending on how big the items in the roadmap are. We tend to schedule something every 6 to 12 months. If possible, because things change with the business. The roadmap plan 6 months ago is very likely to have changed. Firstly, it's a good way of reviewing what you've done so far and what you've delivered so far so that they can actually see the things that you've achieved. But secondly, it's useful to review anything that we didn't know or anything that's changed in the industry or with the business, and then you can deprioritize some things. You might put some stuff that was on hold back into the pipeline, but it's just a way of updating it. Okay, a cautionary tale. This bit was not in this talk until 2 weeks ago, because I make it all sound really easy. I'm sure. And like, we've got it all sorted at We Know Data. You build the roadmap plan and everyone buys into it and you and the client sail off into the sunset together. It doesn't always work like that. Sometimes there are curveballs, right? Sometimes we make mistakes and it's important to acknowledge those mistakes. We made a mistake with a client and I think it's important to share that so that we can grow from it and other people can learn not to make the same mistake. But we basically we've revised our processes since then. So what could possibly go wrong? We had a client, have a client, they're not gone, they're not dead. We have a client. And we did a fabulous roadmap plan for them. And it was great because we completely changed the way that they worked. Because this was your archetypal Derek. He would be sitting down with the developer and getting his things done. And then everyone else who had other stuff planned would not get a look in. So we changed the way that that worked. And it was fantastic. And things were ticking on really nicely. And then we noticed that some of the projects that we'd planned had started to stall. Some of the things in the roadmap plan just sat there. And it wasn't that we weren't engaging with them. They were still asking us to quote for stuff and we were doing small fixes and enhancements and things, but the roadmap was basically largely ignored. And we knew that that was going to help them achieve their business objectives. So it didn't make sense, but we'd lost momentum. And we realized what the issue was. And the issue was a new project stakeholder. Has anyone had this where something's progressing beautifully and then all of a sudden someone else comes in and you just stop dead? And that's what had happened. The previous project stakeholder was wonderful because they were so good at managing Derek, right? Of basically every time he'd try and get some stuff done that wasn't on the roadmap, she would gently sort of redirect him and go, well, no, we've agreed to do this. And he would sort of accept that. But then that person left the business and Derek loved that way of working and Derek's gonna Derek. You're not gonna stop him. So we found out that he was commandeering our developer and asking them to do stuff. And we'd largely taken our eye off the ball, I think. I think we were a little complacent in thinking that the roadmap plan is just going to be picked up and it's going to be like a company-wide thing and everyone's going to move it forwards. But without the project stakeholder to do that, it just sat there. And no one was really thinking about it. And the new project stakeholder was frustrated because they didn't understand what they were spending the money on because they were spending money, but it wasn't to move forward any of the objectives on the roadmap plan. What do you do, basically? What did we learn? Well, firstly, if you get a new project stakeholder, now you meet them like as soon as possible. Get in there and, and introduce yourselves if there's a key change in personnel and tell them about the roadmap plan, because this is useful for them. And we sort of assumed that would have been handed over somehow, I don't know. In all likelihood, the new project stakeholder doesn't even know it exists. They probably don't even know what different pain points are within the business at that point. So we can't rely on someone else explaining it for us. The next thing to do is schedule a roadmap handover. So essentially present it back to them, go through the Miro board with them and say, well, this is what we agreed and this is what was there. And represent all the issues so they know what's on the list. Explain the methodology of the roadmap plan, how you add things to it. So again, just bringing them on board with all the stuff that we assume that everyone knew at the time. And the most important one we found is to ask their opinion. Because anyone that comes into a new job wants to leave their mark on it, right? They want to do things their way. So it's important that you're not presenting this roadmap plan as something that's set in stone and that you've just agreed to do that, so let's carry on. So the way we approached it is that we sort of presented it and said, what do you think? I mean, your priorities have probably changed. I mean, I'm sure you don't even want to do that. And they then start to have a bit more ownership of it. They're a bit more engaged with it. And then over time, it's going to correct that relationship with the client. So, in summary, you've seen what we do, right? You've seen how we do it, and you've seen why we do it. I'm here to tell you why we do it, right? Because there are benefits, huge benefits of roadmap planning sessions. So the people that already do them, you already know this, right? It really changes your relationship with your client. The first thing is that everyone shares the same vision. So very often your clients won't tell you stuff that's on their mind or that's going on with the business. So the fact you know that becomes really useful for you to be able to suggest other things to them. Everyone's pulling in the same direction, and also people know where they are in the list of priorities. If they know their project is 4 projects down the line, they can stop moaning now because they're just, they're just in a queue. The other thing it does is reduce noise. That's the killer. If you're working on something as a developer and someone is asking you to do something else and you take your head out of whatever you're working on, it just takes time. So it reduces all of that noise. You can put some of the projects on hold that don't need to be done, and you can focus on the task in hand, which is definitely a benefit. The other one is it cuts through decision paralysis. Has anyone else got clients that are just crippled by decision paralysis? I get this where they've got loads of ideas and they go, these are all the things we want to do. It's like, great. What do you want to start on? And then they choose to start on nothing because they can't make their mind up. And it's really frustrating. So this, again, lays it all out and it gives them the opportunity to work out what to prioritize and move it forwards. And that's definitely helped from our perspective. Development projects are definitely more efficient because, again, they're gathering everything, all the preparation before a project starts, which is really helpful. Developers are only focused on one project at a time, as are the clients as well, and they can plan budgets better. So if they need to get budget approval for something, they've got time to do that. You're not waiting around. And again, keeping that momentum going is really helpful. The users being empowered is really important as well. Again, like I said earlier, people that are saying, oh, my database is rubbish. It's like, no, it just doesn't do what you want it to do. So tell us what you want it to do and we can make it happen. And if we can prove that there's a return on investment, great, we can really get things moving for you. So that's really helpful. And it also starts to happen that people then come to you with ideas. When people realize that they can implement change, they then start suggesting things, which, as a development company, is fantastic. It's great, because your clients are coming to you. The other thing is that you have a long-term visibility of the company's strategic goals, which is really helpful. So if you know what's coming up for them, you can keep your ears open for other things. This is happening a lot with AI at the moment now. I know, if I know that one of our clients wants to do something in particular, I go, well, look, we've got an AI project we're doing with someone else, which I think is going to really suit you. But if we didn't have the long-term visibility of where they wanted to get, we wouldn't be able to do it. We wouldn't be able to tell them about it and then start the process of getting budget approval and that side of things. This is a huge one, and I think it's kind of underestimated at the start of this process. It completely transforms your relationship with your client. Because very often, and not just your client, but your boss as well, right? If you're an in-house developer, it will transform your relationship with your boss, because we're very often seen as just people to fix something. Something's broken, they'll come and find us and go, that's broken, can you fix it? You fix it, and then they go, right, great, go away. And then that's it. Then that's your relationship. You're basically a plumber or a builder. Doing a system roadmap plan completely changes that, because you're helping them put together the blueprint. So you're not just a builder now, you're an architect. And architects get paid more than builders. So, there's a double win there. But I think if clients see you as internal developers, or they don't see the value in what you're doing, or they don't see the impact of what it has, then they find it really easy to deprioritize you. Because you're just at their beck and call. So once you change that relationship, your time is valued more. You have a much better engagement with them, and fundamentally, it leads to more work. So there's been a huge uptick in the amount of work that we are doing now for existing clients over new clients, because we're keeping things moving, and we're delivering things that we know impacts their business. So we're showing the wins. And as you know, it's easier to get people who are already clients to spend more money than it is to attract new clients. The final thing, and again, it's one that absolutely shouldn't be underestimated, is that Derek stops complaining. That noise, he's never going to be fully happy all the time, but he might just be muttering under his breath now instead of shouting it from the rooftops. And that's worth celebrating. So yeah, that's largely it for the roadmap planning. The wonderful people at Engage are making these talks available as PDFs. So my PDF is going to have these. If you want to do this for your own business and you want to just sort of see what that is and use that for yourselves, feel free. So I've got one of those and one of those blank so that you can use it in your own business. I've got about 10 minutes now. So has anyone got any questions? Oh yes, I've got a microphone here that we need to use. That's all right. Thank you for waiting.
No problem.
Is this on? I don't think I'm on.
Are you on?
Hello?
I can speak up. I can speak up.
I think it's for the video rather than.
Oh, it's for the video. For the people on YouTube.
I love the fact that
Oh, you just So when it comes to prioritization,
yeah.
presumably some things are going to impact the number of units that ship in a week, and something else is going to impact just general quality of life. Mm-hmm. So how important is it to normalize impact?
Well, really, it's you leave it to the client. You know, I'm not trying to homogenize it because it's what is the highest value to them. They're the people that are choosing the impact. So, yeah, it's a good question, and it's really what is the biggest pain point in their business at that point. What is the thing that is stopping them from achieving their super objective? So if it's the scale, then what's stopping them scaling? You know, is there a single point of failure that needs sorting, and then it becomes a resource issue, and and then you need to basically do an AI project to get them to do that, share the knowledge. Yeah, it's a good question, but it's really hard as well not to get involved with the client to offer your thoughts, but it's really important that they have ownership of it. Anyone else any questions?
So Derek's finally on board with your roadmap, but he likes to scope creep. How do you guys deal with that with clients as the roadmap progresses? You get to the next defined project and it's starting to just blow out.
Well, at the point that we do this, we're not really providing any quotes. So we deal with scope creep in the way that we currently deal with scope creep with any project, which is sort of go, don't do that, it's going to cost more money. And you as honest and transparent as possible with them. But yeah, when we're giving them an indication of effort, we don't give them an indication of price because we don't know enough yet. And it's important to be transparent with the client about that as well and say, look, I haven't even looked under the bonnet of this system. So, and it also helps to pretend that you're non-technical. Because I am, like I could probably do it, but it helps to go, I'll leave that to those guys. I'm just giving you a finger in the air. But yeah, so as with any project, how you deal with scope creep there, and it is a nightmare. It's a challenge for everything.
But this is earlier on, obviously.
Yeah, and you try and sort of, it's really just a commitment to starting this project. So it's super high level.
A follow up to that. So the scope creep, but what about when then you send out the roadmap and then the next day they just reprioritize without you in the room again?
They can do that. That's okay, because it doesn't, I'm not emotionally invested in the roadmap plan from them. It's just to help them, at least if they're having those conversations, that's great. Because the problem was those conversations weren't happening. So if they've looked at it and gone, actually, I don't think we should do that, and they want to swap it around, it doesn't matter to us. We'll just start the next project. Yeah, so I quite like that in a way, because it means they're engaged with it.
Follow up on that.
Yep.
If you allow them to reprioritize later, do you consider that a sunk cost? Because you haven't quoted yet. Like, are they paying you for this process? And
that's a really good question.
If instead of 2 hours takes 3 days because you let them, go over your work again, does it become a bigger sunk cost? Well,
in terms of scoping out a project, that happens after the roadmap, and that's a cost within that project. What's going on here? Yeah, that becomes a cost within the project. So, what's it saying there? No cable connect. I mean, definitely is. But as to your question about whether we charge, I don't charge for the roadmap plans at the moment. I have a feeling that I probably should, because it does offer enormous value to a client. However, I don't want to put any barrier in the way of a client having a lovely long list of projects that we know they want to deliver. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons I've got it to 4 hours, really, because firstly, it's not much of their time to commit because they're busy people, they've got stuff to do. But also, the quicker I can turn it around, the less sunk cost there is. But the value that that provides, the information that we get from that, and the relationship shift with the client is easily worth 4 hours of my time, I think. Any other questions?
You have one. Someone. Yeah.
I'm just curious about. I like the technique of moving the dots across the graph, But do you ever have too many dots or too many points for that method?
It's a good question. I did one that was 14 dots recently. That was quite hard going. But again, you don't want to discourage them from bringing it. What you might do is say, is maybe get some ones that you can put on hold, just an initial look, and give them an idea of that. Because yeah, if you're right, if they're coming with like 30 different things, then that's unmanageable. But so far, it's sort of usually between 8 and 14 that I get. But it's a good question, thank you. Is there another question? Is that it? Oh, one more.
Okay.
What about if you discover pain points for you, not for the customer? So you open up the relationship diagrams, you find yourself into a labyrinth where you expect a minotaur appear or something like that.
That is why it's really important to not get technical in the roadmap call. Yeah, you're right, because sometimes you can go, oh, that looks like an easy thing, and we've all been there, right? And when you've looked in the relationship graph, it's like, what is even, I don't understand what this is. Or this is 96 files that I didn't know about. At this point, it's just an indication, just a relative indication of how complex. And again, it's about being transparent with the client and saying, I don't know what's involved in this, but knowing what a similar project with a similar client has taken and knowing what we know about your business, I can tell you that it's roughly this. But yeah, that's when the development team hate me. It's like, what did you promise? Nothing. Just make it happen. But yeah, no, it's a good question. Is that it? All right, well, thank you, guys. If anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm more than happy to accept your friend request or invite. Thank you for choosing this talk over all of the other amazing ones here. So I'm genuinely honoured that you've done that, and I just love this event. I'm really excited to now go and enjoy the rest of it. If any questions come to mind after the session, I'm here for the next few days. Just come and grab me for a coffee or a beer later on, maybe, if you want, that's fine. Connect me on LinkedIn if you want to do that. And the other thing is that if you've got any feedback for this session, hopefully good, because I really enjoy this and I'd like to come back. So if people can, I don't know if anyone's downloaded the Engage to Go app yet. That's where you leave the feedback. If you could do that and give me your honest thoughts, that would be really appreciated. That's it. Thanks very much.